Hello and welcome to another episode of Gender Stories. I know I'm always very excited about every guest, but I'm extra excited when our people that I know and love. And so today I am extra excited because I get to interview PJ Desrochers. And PJ is a visual artist who explores their non-binary humanness through art. PJ creates images, builds sculptural installations, and immersive experiences of their gender and a life well lived. Their media originates with photographic self-portraits printed on transparency film. PJ then builds creations by layering the transparent images and connecting them, quite often using fingerprinted scotch tape and fishing line to found objects. These photographic assemblages can often be found installed within the natural beauty of central Vermont, where the photograph and film these beloved creations to become gallery accessible and presented for your viewing pleasure. And PJ has exhibited all over Vermont and beyond Vermont. And now they have this wonderful project that's very exciting to see and be seen, which is what we're going to be talking about today. So welcome, PJ, to Gender Stories. Thank you so much for making the time to be talking with me today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Alex. I really appreciate it. I'm an admirer of you and this show, and so it's just really lovely. Thank you.
Oh, it's so lovely to have you here and like fellow therapist and then an artist. I had the pleasure to have a little preview of your tarot deck, and I'm so excited. So let's start there. You have the Kickstarter that's about to launch, and which will launch by the time this episode releases next week. So yes, tell the listeners about what you're doing and what this Kickstarter is about.
So I am launching a tarot deck called To See and Be Seen Non-Binary Tarot Deck. You can, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see it kind of hanging out behind me in the background. Those are kind of photos of the images of the cards. But if you're just a listener, there's a grid of colorful conceptual images that are behind me that looks kind of like a quilt, and those are the images that will be on the To See and Be Seen Non-Binary Tarot Deck that launches on Kickstarter this Saturday, November 11th at 11:11 Eastern Standard Time, and will be open and up for 22 days for folks to contribute. So if you want a deck, this is the way to do it, is to contribute, and all of the reward levels, except for one, all have a deck as part of it. So that is the hope, to get everyone that wants a deck and is able to contribute. And then hopefully beyond there, we can push and get decks to folks that can't meet that level. So
I love that. And if there are any folks who are listening or like, oh, I would love to get that for my non-binary friend or family member or neighbor, this is a great opportunity. Get more than one deck. Get a deck for you, get a deck for a friend who maybe cannot afford to support the Kickstarter right now. I love it. So
yes.
why a non-binary tarot decks? There are lots of tarot decks out there, right? And there's some, so why did you decide to make your own? I'm so curious about that.
Well, I have been a tarot reader for 30 years, and I, as just a visual artist and an extroverted person, and just a person that needs like external imagery to be able to understand, like, that's how I came to kind of understand and know my inner interior and have it feel like held and validated more so than other places in my life. So relationships do that, yes, but this really, tarot always helped me develop a really deep relationship and knowing and understanding of myself. So that's kind of the tarot has just been a huge gift and tool, development tool for me the past 30 years. And then when I came out as non-binary, like later in life, so I'm 53 now, I was 48 when I came out, I I found like my decks to not resonate quite as well because oftentimes tarot decks are pretty binaried in nature. And I would have some dysphoric responses to my readings or need to do a lot of mental work in the readings to have them resonate in the same way. So I felt a little adrift in my spiritual tool or the way that I connected with myself. And that's what got me thinking about making a deck that was, I guess, degendered, so to speak, or gender expansive, which is really more how I like to look at it, is that it just expands. And so that's sort of what got that idea rolling for me, the marrying of those two, of like this tool that I loved and then there being sort of a mismatch with it. So I made it for myself essentially, and now I'm hoping that it will be for other people as well that might feel similarly to me or wanting to explore their gender in a way that it doesn't have to land in such a binary category or space and time within a spiritual practice or a practice of care that tarot is.
I love that. And I love how you're talking about tarot, both as a spiritual practice, but also like a relational
Yes.
practice to self. That's very much my relationship with tarot as well. And
Mm-hmm.
I really love how it helps us, yes, maybe connect to something greater than us if that's our belief system. But for me, it is really about that deep relationship. And so how those binaries in more traditional decks can really get in the way of us connecting. I've very much resonated with that reasoning.
Mm-hmm.
And not only did you make your tarot deck, but you brought your beautiful art to making this deck. And so, do you want to tell listeners a little bit how you organize, like maybe the different suits of the deck, or kind of, is there people imagery? Is it just nature? Like, what can people expect if they kind of get your deck? Mm-hmm.
Um, let's see. Well, people can expect. I actually am the main character of the deck. I am a self-portrait artist, and so I have a huge gallery of images to choose from. So all of the images that I worked with are all my own photography, and all of the suits are come from bodies of artwork that I had completed well prior to even making the deck. So there's a way that I say like this deck was ahead of me, kind of like a lot of my art, like a lot of my art seems to be ahead of me. I'm like making it and I'm like, oh, that makes sense while I'm making it like 6 months, 3 years later. So you will see me and see my face, but it kind of through the years. So there's really different physical and body and face. And a lot of it's very abstract. So I am a conceptual artist. So I often will make pieces that might have just my hand on it, layered in with other objects from nature or windows or mirrors so everything's very layered. So every card probably has 5 different photographic images in it layered. There are only 2 in the deck that are actually single images. But everything else of the 78 card deck is layered. So what you can expect to see as far as the gender expansiveness is I took some of the major arcana cards, which I call archetypals, because again, Alex, I'm very similar to you in that this tarot is a relational deck. I'm a relational therapist. And so my lens for how this deck's work is about a relationship with yourself and about really trusting yourself or kind of trusting others, hence like to see and be seen. So the seeing of yourself and what you want reflected back to you. So I really see tarot as a reflective tool. Um, Getting a little off track. You get me going.
We can go all over the tracks. I want to get you going. Go for it.
Okay. Okay, I'm like trying to track your question, and then I'm like, oh,
No,
there I go.
we can
Down this.
meander through the garden, PJ. It's all good.
Okay. I'm happy to be
Well,
meandering. All right.
let's meander.
So,
Yeah,
okay.
done.
So as far as the archetypals, there are 22 of those, and about half of them, the ones that I felt caused me dysphoria or I felt were overtly gendered, say like high priestess, is in my deck is called witness. So high priestess is really like a deep seeing and a deep knowing and our deep intuition. And so witness to me is that it comprises that, like you're witnessing something in yourself or something in others that's greater than you, that you're also a part of. And so I tried to find names that I felt captured the essence of the major arcana into more of an archetypal mode. So like Alex, you have the discernment tattoo, and there's a discernment card. Yes, card number 20, which is typically the judgment card in a major arcana. And I like discernment as a way of making choice. And so judgment is just to me a little heavier handed, and discernment almost puts that choice in your hand. Like discernment it can be making a really difficult choice, but there's something about it where judgment feels like it's coming from above you.
Yes.
And discernment feels like it just feels more non-binary to me, a little more like in choice, a little more both and. So those are ways that I kind of infuse some therapeutic concepts into the deck as well. So not only are there sort of gender expansive concepts, but this deck comes out of my language, which is a relational therapeutic language that I have used not only in connection with clients, but just in connection with myself through the years. So yeah.
That's cool. I feel like that whether people are non-binary or not, when they use your deck, they're really going to be invited into expanding their understanding of those cards, of those major arcana or those minor arcana. And I think that that's a beautiful gift to anybody, no matter what their gender, I think, to expand beyond those binaries. How beautiful. And I love the title of your project, To See and Be Seen. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, right? A lot of us struggle to truly see others, without all the baggage and lenses of our own identity and experiences, and to feel seen by others, right? Without all of that kind of cloud of trauma identities and experiences. And so I'm curious about where that name came from, even like how did you find the name of To See and Be Seen?
Well, I think again, it starts with me and just a deep yearning and desire to see and to understand and to be seen and to be understood by others. And I felt really compelled to try to make a product or make something that we can have before us that can offer that to us on a daily basis. And particularly as like a trans non-binary human, I don't often read how I'm seen. And so when I pull a card, I'm always seen. And it's not like, oh, maybe I'll be seen today, maybe I won't be. It's like, I'm going to be seen every day. And being a person that really values reflection as a way to understand myself, that also is the nature of the deck, like just that value that I have. And that just, I don't know if it's a value, but it's a real like deep knowing of myself and what I need. And I make the assumption that I'm not the only one.
I think that's a very solid assumption to make. I think there's such a deep human need to see and be seen and to feel mirrored, right? Is something that often is really missing for many of us kind of trans or non-binary or gender expansive folks, to kind of see ourselves and be seen for who we truly are out in the world can be really challenging. So we're talking about your beautiful deck, and I wonder if we could pull a card from your deck.
Yes,
Of
let's
course,
do it.
like listening and not watching on YouTube, you'll describe the card and what should we pull a card about. Maybe one have an intention in pulling this card.
Sure. What do you think?
Maybe
What feels like a good
if
intention?
yeah, maybe if listeners are struggling to feel seen or see others, especially around gender, let's see what guidance maybe the deck might have for folks who are struggling to feel seen or to see others for who they are.
That sounds really good. So I'm gonna just hold up the deck here. So this is the deck that came from the printer. This is the first paper copy that I've had. I've been working with the transparent copy for the past 2 years. And so this is my first like copy. So this is the back of the deck.
Beautiful.
It's nice and thick. So I'm just gonna give it some shuffles and we're gonna think about our intention. And when I pull this card, and when we pull this card, Alex, I'll actually ask you to um, kind of go through a series of questions, which is sort of how I like this deck to work. But what is it that you feel in response to the image? What is it that you're thinking? Is there anything that you're noticing or things that you know already about this card? And then we'll kind of read it from that place, like for the collective, for the listeners. We could
I
both
love it.
questions.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any shuffle amount that you like, or
Oh, I
you
always like shuffle
any?
and then cut the little deck in like three and then reassemble
Okay,
it. For
okay, that's what I'm doing. Cutting in 3. Boop, boop. All right. Top card.
Let's do it.
All right.
Oh,
Here we have the 9 of golden portals.
yes.
Golden portals is the suit of fire, the elemental suit of fire, suit of the soul or spirit. You, on this card for listeners, you'll see 9 layered golden circles that look kind of lit with light underneath a bare tree scape. So there are thin tree limbs that kind of layer up and over this 9 here.
It's so beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
Yes. Oh, that is such a beautiful card. Let's talk about it.
Yeah. What are your thoughts or your feels?
Well, I'm thinking about 9, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking how for me when we get into like 8, 9, 10, it's towards the end of some sort of journey, right? And
Mm-hmm.
about our intention around if people are struggling to see or feel seen, how that is an ongoing journey, right? And
Yeah.
so we might be at the end of the journey, but we're quite a way in. So, and that really resonates with my experience of sometimes when I felt like isolated or not having enough closeness or intimacy with people, I've had to ask myself, how am I closing myself off to that connection? To
Mm-hmm.
that be seen, right? Because to be seen, there's a vulnerability to it. And so even those beautiful kind of there's a warmth to the card with all the golden, right? There's a warmth and I love that it's a bear tree because I love bears. So I don't know if that's got anything to do with the reading, but bears have a lot of significance for me And for me, bears also represent very much both protection and strength in terms of community, and the protection and strength that comes from community. So when I'm thinking about the card, I'm also thinking about the abundance of strength and protection that we find in community as trans or non-binary or gender expansive people. And not just connection with, like, maybe we're in a place where there's nobody else who looks like us, but there are gender blessed ancestors and transcestors. And so connection, not just like in the community of humans, but also community of non-human animals, green bloods, ancestors. I don't know. That's kind of where my mind went with that card. I think it opened some portals in my mind, apparently.
Yeah, it certainly did. It certainly did. So I heard you say kind of interconnect, like the interconnectivity that we all have, and how if we talk about choice, like we make a choice to sort of be seen or not be seen, and the vulnerability in that when we allow ourselves to. But the tree being something that's supportive, but also can be, a little bit like blocking, like how we can kind of hold ourselves back a little bit too. You can see that in the images. Sorry, got something beeping over here.
There's always something beeping in our lives, I feel, nowadays.
It's true. It's true. And I love your connection with the 9, because I definitely resonate with the 9 in this card myself, as such a number of completions and things really coming to a close. And what I picked up in this card, which I haven't really seen before, and so what's happening for me with these printed on this white paper is it's almost like a new deck to me.
Yeah.
That I am seeing things I have never seen, and this is my art, and I've been working with this deck for 2 years, so it's just interesting. But almost like it looks like it's like burning through a little bit. And so I'm wondering a bit, like, collectively what we're setting a flame to, and kind of clearing out, using smoke to clear or fire to clear, or to light up sort of parts of ourselves. Like, there's a letting go in that, and there's also a lighting up, like, some being on fire, and letting those parts of ourselves be seen, our fiery parts.
I love that. And I love what you said about the fire and the clearing as well, because I feel like we are clearing a lot of kind of systemic barriers and oppressive systems in some ways, and collectively. And so that relationship between the individual and the collective, I think, feels part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And those weigh heavy on our spirits.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful card. Yeah, I'm thinking about the intention that I mentioned around, people are struggling, feeling seen or being seen, and this beautiful card, and now there's like this fire, the trees is very, there's this warmth, this connection with about interdependence. Yeah, anything else that it's coming through for you from this card around that?
I was wondering if it's okay if I pulled out the guide map, because I wrote a guide map to go with this deck. And so I thought I'd read what I had written in there just to see, because oftentimes, like, with this deck, I really like folks to read and like get their sense and connect. And if there still feels like there's more, it could be good to bust into the guide map. So if you're okay.
I love that.
Okay.
That's what I do with tarot for myself. It's like I look at the card and see what it feels like, but I like to go to the booklet to be like, well, but what else have I missed?
Yeah. And I just made what comes with this deck. It doesn't look brief, but everything about that connects this really shows how the cards are interconnected and interrelated with each other. So
Oh,
I'm
that's
just,
beautiful. Like this beautiful color for folks who cannot see it. I'm very excited. I can't wait to get my hands on one of your tarot decks through the Kickstarter.
let's see. So with this guide map, you can open it up. It opens up like kind of an old school map. So it has 4 panels. And then on the inside, the top says to see and be seen non-binary tarot guide map. And there's 4 columns: numbers, archetypals, elementals, and relationals. And those are the names of all the different cards in the deck. So with this card, we pulled the 9 of golden portals. We're going to look up 9, like number 9, which both Alex and I said was completion. And then with the golden portals, so I'll go to the elementals, because golden portals is one of the elemental sign of fire and vitality. And in traditional tarot is the wand suit. And I'm going to go down the column to this number 9. And the words are time touches time.
Wow.
So with this map, I like to gather a couple of the words into like a little poem or a little incantation of some sort. So is there a way, Alex, for you that either completion or vitality or golden or soul or time touches time works into a statement that connects to the intention?
Yeah, I love that. I'm thinking about it because there's so much in there. But I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is our journey to see and be seen is never fully done. But time brings us vitality and sometimes completion.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
what's coming for me.
Yeah. 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 I think in those moments when time does touch time, there is this brief moment of completion of like, oh, I get it.
Yeah,
and then we continue on.
exactly. I feel like, sometimes it can feel like I never have completion, but there are those moments that are like just like this precious, almost like snow globe moments, I call them, where oh, and then it's like so ephemeral, but I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
I think that
Oh,
really connects with the intention really well.
oh, thank you. This is
Yeah.
so fun to get to do a reading with you and to pull a card, and I'm just really thinking about what a wonderful tool tarot is, but also what a wonderful tool art is, right? And as well as being a therapist, you're an artist and you're a self-portrait artist. And I hope you don't mind me asking, but I'm curious about what role as your art, especially your self-portrait art, had in your own gender journey, if any, right? Because you take portraits of yourself, and so I was like, that I don't know. For me, I take a lot of selfies, and partially that has a lot to do with like seeing myself as a trans, and not just as a trans person, but also as a disabled person, as an aging person, as a person moving through space and time. Like, so I'm just really curious about your art and how that has potentially contributed to your own gender journey.
It's interesting because it contributed to everything. I mean, I think without my art, I wouldn't have noticed or maybe seen as soon, or understood that part of myself. But like when I came out as queer, it comes out as a whisper in me for some reason, and then when it's out, it's like rah, like really out. But so what happened is I noticed in my self-portraiture photography, which I use in a real similar way as you, Alex, but initially when I started to use it, I had been recently divorced and then out of a very challenging relationship and had just kind of lost my sense of self and the photography and self-portraiture particularly really helped me, a lot like tarot, see myself. And so what happened is I was looking back through my photographs for a period of time, and I had only taken pictures of portions of my body. Instead of either full images or front face images, I just had like shoulder or feet or arms or like really fractured. So I printed up all of those images and I put them all up on the wall to sort of assemble myself as a body. And then each one of those images I printed onto transparency. And this is my first use of transparency film in my photography. And I built a sculpture that had these images of these parts of my body that made a whole that moved, and then installed that in nature. But what I found out while I was making that, making those pixels, I was just like, why aren't you taking images of yourself? Like, what's going on? Like, something had really changed. And I do really think that there was a fracturing of what I would call like womanhood, what I would call like how I saw or held my body. And like there was sort of a fracturing and an opening and a reconfiguring of myself into non-binary form. And so through my art, I sort of saw that before my eyes. And it was really beautiful and powerful process, but without that reflection, like without that practice of the Sophie or the self-portraiture care that I was up to, I don't think I would have seen what was happening and been able to hear the whisper, because I do think non-binary doesn't speak in the same language as binary gender does. And it just took me that to understand that for myself, and to like be able to allow myself to shape shift, which is what it felt like I did into, I don't know if you had this experience when you come out, but when I was coming out, people are like, oh yeah, that makes total sense about you.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
thanks. Glad you
Like,
knew.
makes sense. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the coming out story, was coming out to myself and having my art show me the way.
I love that. And I mean, to be clear, your self portraits are art and so beautiful,
Yes.
compared to selfies. But I think there is this desire, right, to like see ourselves and reflect ourselves through art. And I think it's so interesting because I don't know if you've had this experience, but I definitely was told I was bad at art when I was
Mm,
growing up. A lot of
mm-hmm.
people who as adults don't engage with creating or making things because they think art is just for like accomplished artists, right, who studied
Mm-hmm.
it. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and I wonder if you have ever had any um hesitation or shyness around owning also your artist identity, not just your non-binary identity, but really moving into that artist identity for yourself.
Yeah, it's been a struggle. It's my favorite place. Um, I definitely, yeah, that art is where I want to be, and making art is where I want to be, and it's definitely been a journey to get here. I was fortunate in that I grew up. My mom is an artist. She's a watercolor painter, and so we did art all the time and creative stuff. So I had a lot of confidence, but I wasn't the kind of artist that my mom. What like I'm not a representational artist, and so I just never thought that I was an artist.
Mm.
And then I discovered like that I'm really good with collage and like image making and imagery and photography. It took me a while to own that as real for myself. And I think that I'm just going to make a guess here, but my tendency to be a person that wants to fit in as a way to survive, which I don't need as much anymore. I think also, like, I think about how I made a choice to go to regular college and not art school. And I
Yeah.
guess I just wonder, like, oh, I wonder if I went to the Art Institute of Seattle, like, would I have made fashion? Like, it just
Mm.
it just makes me wonder. I just wonder that. Um, so, yeah, but I had this funny experience when I did go to an artist retreat and really took a seat in myself as an artist and was kind of doubting that. And there was a person there who was like, like you like take a chair and like float chairs in the water and like take pictures of it. Like, I don't know what other kind of proof you need to know that you're an artist, but you are. And I was like, oh yeah, that's right. I'm like, oh, so not the usual way of like looking at a chair. And so that those kind of reflections really help like people that sort of see and recognize that in me. Yeah.
And how that connects to what we've been talking about all through the interview, which is to see and be seen, right? Because it's not just, and there is also so many different aspects of our identities. I love how, in a way you like took a seat as an artist in that retreat, but you also were reflected back by other artists who were like, hey, I see you as an artist, right? And growing up, your art is different from the art that's getting made around you that might not feel as art, right? And so this, I think, really comes back to just how foundational to us as humans it is to see ourselves and be seen by those around us, that interdependence we have with those around us. That's so beautiful. I feel like I could talk with you forever about this topic and about your tarot deck. Maybe go through all your cards, but I'm going to be respectful of your time and not do that. So I'll ask you the question that I always ask all of my guests at the end of the interview, which is there anything we have not talked about that you were hoping we would cover for our listeners? So anything that we have not touched on yet that you wanted to make
Well,
sure you...
yes. I did want to make sure that everybody knows the different suits of
Yeah,
the deck because we didn't get to talk about that.
true.
Um, so the suits in To See and Be Seen Non-Binary Tarot are those are there. I call them elementals. And so we already met the suit of golden portals, which is the elemental suit of fire and our soul, like our spirit, our vitality that comes through. And then there's the suit of ribbons, and ribbons is the elemental suit of water. And so that's the suit all about our feels and our emotions. And like, I like ribbons for like how they roll through. And so just to keep in mind, like each one of these suits were individual bodies of work that I created artistically. So I had a golden portal series. I had a ribbon series. The next one would be windows. And so windows is the elemental suit of air, and it represents, I call it brain support, but it
Mm,
represents our mind. And it's really windows are based on the concept of Dan Siegel's The Window of Tolerance, which is one of my favorite therapeutic concepts, which is just getting right to the heart and like holding yourself in that heart of where you're making a change and moving from one thought to the next, one place to the next. And it's just this place that kind of holds you so your brain can catch up and burn a new neural pathway. So I love the windows suit for our minds. And then the final suit is the elemental suit of its chairs, and that represents earth, our groundedness, and then it's the embodied suit. And so when you think about a chair or sitting in a chair, kind of sometimes we feel comfortable, sometimes we don't, but we're typically like at rest. And so I like to think of that suit as the suit where we're like at rest and present in our bodies and what touches our bodies. And yeah, and that also has been one of my very favorite bodies of artwork. I have a chair series, and so all of the images from those series are all embedded into this deck. So it really is like a conglomeration of my work, my artwork through time, like in these cards for everyone, which makes me really happy.
That's amazing. I also think that's the most poetic and beautiful description of the window of tolerance concept I've ever heard a therapist give. So spoken like a true artist, PJ.
Thank you. That means a lot to me coming from you, Alex. Thank you so much.
I am so excited about this deck, and I'm so excited about your art. So if people want to go on Kickstarter and make sure that within those 22 days that the Kickstarter is going to be open for, they get a deck, where should they go? Should they Google to see and be seen on the Kickstarter site? Or yes, I will of course a link to the episode description, but in case people don't look at the episode description, let's just tell.
You could just do to see and be seen non-binary tarot through Kickstarter. Also, I have a landing page, which is 11 to see and be seen 11.com. And so that gets you connected. If you want to learn more about my art, there's a link there. If you want Instagram, there's a link there. Kickstarter has a link. There's a newsletter that I'll be starting up in the new year that you can sign up for there if you want, for all the updates on product development and things I hope to be doing in the future for to see and be seen. So yeah.
Love it. Well, I'll make sure that all those links are in the episode description. So if you miss what PJ just said, don't hesitate to go in the episode description, either to whichever podcast platform you're listening on or through the YouTube channel. If you're watching the episode, and make sure you click that link, go support the Kickstarter, follow PJ's beautiful work on Instagram. And I'm so excited about this deck being out in the world. Anything else you want to share with our listeners before we say goodbye?
Just so much gratitude and thanks for Alex for hosting and Brute for editing, and for all of you who are listening. I just really appreciate your care and your support and being able to talk about what I love. It's such a gift. So thank you so much. I love to talk about this stuff. So it's exciting.
Well, it is exciting. It's been such a pleasure to talk with you, PJ. Thank you so much for making the time to talk about beautiful non-binary deck to see and be seen. And dear Gender Stories listeners, until next time, I hope that you all feel reflected, your beautiful selves reflected back at you from those around you. Until next time.
Bye.